the EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at theeppodcast.com.
And welcome down to the EP Podcast. My name is Chris Lanuti, bellying up to the 9-foot homemade oak bar, and pour yourself a cold one. We've got 30 minutes of good for Evergreen Park up ahead, and it is a packed show. First off, a good friend of ours who makes really good beer is bringing us what might be the biggest beer on the South Side this summer. We have Mayor-elect Kelly Burke on the program, first time speaking with us since she won the election. We're going to find out what's going on behind the scenes with the transition and what she might be doing in her first days in office sometime in the middle of May. And I had a group of employees reach out to me recently to tell me that an Evergreen Park business that you might know, that you might have heard of, is actually turning 16, sweet 16, and the owner has a heck of a story as to how they started. And when you hear about how they started and how they've ended up so far, you'll be amazed. So she's down here for her interview, sitting at the end of the bar. And it's all brought to you by the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. I'm going to go off script here and just tell you a personal story between me and the First National Bank of Evergreen Park over at 95th and Pulaski. The Broadcast Basement On Demand Radio Network has several different shows. Southside Pod, covering everything outside of Evergreen Park on the South Side. It's funny. We took a road trip to Blue Island this past weekend. You're going to hear that new show coming out on Thursday. We also have Sox in the Basement, the #1 White Sox podcast in all the land. Finally got to see a White Sox no-hitter, Carlos Rodon throwing one last week. That's a fun one to check out online, everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. And then, of course, the EP podcast and several others. I think we're up to like 8 podcasts right now on the network. But the network bank account was at a big conglomerate bank, and I got frustrated. Honest to goodness, every time I had an issue, I had to tweet them, not call them. Getting into the branch was impossible. I had to tweet them. So their Twitter bot would tell me what number to call. Then I would wait on hold for like 45 minutes and get frustrated. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, why am I with this other bank? I'm just being lazy. And I switch over to our proud sponsors, the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. Painless. And not only was it painless, it was friendly. It was like going back in time to an age when you would walk into a bank and they were happy to see you. I get the whole thing set up, and then disaster. Of course, something doesn't go right. I'm unable to log on to my online banking when I first try it out the next day. And I'm like, well, this is going to be a complete mess. So I shoot off an email to my bank rep over there. He gets back to me in less than 3 minutes. He tells me he's taking care of it right now from home, even though it's his day off. I'm not getting that from the big banks. I'm getting that from the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. I'm hooked, and they've got me for life. Learn more about their difference and make an appointment with a local banker right now. Find out what they can do for you at bankevergreenpark.com/foryou, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Joining me on the phone line right now, she is the brand new mayor. Well, not exactly yet. She's got to wait till like mid-May, but she's just been elected mayor of Evergreen Park, the first female mayor of the village. Kelly Burke on the line with us. Hello, Kelly. How are you?
Great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
How excited are you?
I'm very excited. I'm thrilled.
You sit there and you think to yourself, yeah, I want to do this. I want to be mayor. And then you get into the campaign. You don't know if anybody's going to run against you at first. Then all of a sudden you're in a race. And then you get a resounding, it was over 85% of the vote. And you must feel really good right now going into this.
I do. We ran, our team ran a really strong campaign, and it feels great. And, you put so much energy into the campaign. Sometimes you got your head down, you got your nose to the grindstone. And then when you finally come up for air, you look around and say, wow, we really did that. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to pop in at the end of your gathering on election night, and I got to catch some words from outgoing Mayor James Sexton. And it sounded to me like he basically, like, that night was like, here's your new mayor. How much are you guys going to be working with each other over the next month or so here until this actually becomes official and you slide into the mayor's chair? Like, what's that going to be like?
Oh, there's going to be a lot of meetings, to help with the transition. We've already had one. We've got another one next week. And not only with the mayor, but with Kathy Aparo, with our department heads. So they'll be helping me with the transition for the next 5 weeks.
Is it like something where they have to hand you a bunch of keys?
They literally did give me keys. I literally did pick up the keys to City Hall on a We Heart EP keychain.
You got the Evergreen Park missile codes? Is that what you're telling me now?
I hope not. I hope that nobody told me that was part of the job.
You're going to get in there now. You're at the tail end of what is still a pandemic. You've kind of watched everything that's happened. You've been a village trustee during this time. What are you feeling about this summer? How do you feel like this is going to go here for Evergreen Park? I'm starting to see a few spotty suburbs starting to talk about the fact they might have a festival in the fall or maybe something in the late summer. Take us through this and what your mindset is right now, just before you start taking over.
Well, we're keeping a careful eye on the numbers and the rate of infections, rate of vaccinations. I know the vaccinations have been opened up to a wider group of people. That is great. And just, seeing as the rate of vaccinations goes up, you would hope that the rate of infections goes down. So we're really keeping a strong eye on that. I don't want to make any predictions because we're still in early stages, but it's definitely something we are keeping our eye on.
And some of the good news is the fact that, the mortality rate is dropping substantially because of the amount of elderly and those that were actually had, comorbidities that they're vaccinated now. So it almost becomes like, even if you see, there are people still being infected, it's a different disease for different age groups. So that has to make you feel positive as well.
Oh, yeah. And, but, people still are getting sick and, some people are getting, having to be hospitalized and serious, but that seems to be lessening. And people do seem just anecdotally, you may have seen this around town as you've done your podcast or been at the Sox game or whatever. People seem much more willing to go out and be in public and be with groups of people. So that's heartening too. But it's something we got to keep our eye on.
A lot of times when somebody let's say wins the presidency, everybody asks what they're going to do in their first 100 days. Do you sit down and actually map out 2-3 things that you definitely want to just jump right in at when you get into office, or is this a wait and see type thing?
I think it's a wait and see. We've had one transition meeting. So as we go through, there are things that have to be done on a routine basis, that the village has to do. So the things that we have to do are things that are going to come first. And then, we'll work on some of the ideas that we talked about in the campaign. We'll continue our efforts at economic development. Obviously, that's job number one. But, as I talked about in the campaign, I have a big interest, and, a lot of residents do too, about some environmental initiatives, working through it, some of our summer programs and seeing what we can do and trying to shape those in a way that's, COVID friendly, but also, maybe some loosening of how things were last year and some more programming. But those will be a work in progress too.
So one of the things that popped into my mind the other day driving around in the car, and I don't know if you have the answer to this, but I thought it was kind of funny as I was thinking about it. I drove by a sign at a park, and underneath it said Mayor James Sexton. And I kept thinking to myself, I wonder how many signs have the current mayor on it and have to be changed. Is there a guy who's designated to run around and change all the signs? And how quickly do they turn all that around? Have you heard about that? I just keep imagining there's a sign guy, and at some point he's going to walk up and be like, all right, I'm going out to change all the signs, Kelly. How does that work?
That I don't know. And I have to say that hasn't made the top 25 list of things we've talked about, but I'm making it number 26 now. I'll talk to Mayor Sexton about it on Monday.
That's why you're the mayor and I'm not. I would immediately be like, funny. Okay, let's get the new signs made. That would have been my first thing.
That is not my first priority. I'll tell you that much.
That's awesome. Well, I would imagine it was a big thrill. I would imagine that the family's excited about it. I would imagine the first gentleman is happy that those koozies that said, elect Terry Burke first gentleman are not going to be some kind of ironic, funny thing now because he's actually now the first gentleman. I mean, I would imagine that you're pretty pumped up about it, and I think that Evergreen Park's looking forward to see what you do.
Yeah, I don't know how pumped up he is about it, but we ran. And it was a team effort. I know you have me on here as the mayor, but it was a total team effort. We ran a real positive campaign. We focused on showing who we are. We focused on our involvement in the community, not just as elected officials, but we all have deep ties in the community, talked about what we've done, our plans for the future. And I think that message really resonated with people. People of Evergreen Park put their trust in us, and we're going to get to work.
That is Mayor Kelly Burke. Get used to it. It's going to be ringing in your ears now here in Evergreen Park. She's got to get used to it. She's got to figure out how to get the signs replaced. Kelly Burke, she's the mayor of Evergreen Park. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks, Chris, and hope the Sox continue their excellent streak.
It is now time for your EP podcast, Word on the Street, brought to you by the guy who takes care of all of my insurance, protecting everything that matters to me, Mike Thauer over at Country Financial. He's here in Evergreen Park. He's a good dude. Check him out. 3923 West 95th Street, right in the EP. Give him a call at 708-425-1559. I decided I was going to coach an EPBC T-ball team. And then I picked my first practice for Wednesday. Guess who's got to reschedule a practice today? Because it looks like 3 days of rain, off and on, with possible snow on Tuesday night. If you're a parent and you thought to yourself, hey, the podcast guy is coaching my team, we will meet later on this week. Look for an email because Thursday and Friday, it gets back up into the high 50s after dropping into the low 40s at the early point of this week. The Evergreen Park Youth Department has a youth garden that they're planting, and this is for kids in grades from 4 through 12, Tuesday, May 18th, from 4 to 6 p.m. Go on out and plant in the youth garden. It's at the community center, 3450 West 97th Street. They're going to have some tools, but you might want to bring some of your own as well. This will be supervised, and students looking for service hours can get them. Reserve a spot today, 708-229-3377. That's your EP Podcast Word on the Street, found everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at theeppodcast.com. And folks, before I continue this podcast, I want to tell you a little bit about my friend, Larry Liebforth. Larry was born and raised right here in Evergreen Park and has been in business for almost 30 years. I continuously see him volunteering his time with local sports associations, helping out the kids, helping raise money for charity. And what you need to know is that Larry is there in case you need some help as well. For nearly 30 years, the law offices of Lawrence G. Liebforth have been handling every kind of law you can think of, from personal injury cases to real estate dealings, if you need a will drawn up, or representation in a criminal case. It's good to know you have local representation available, rooted in the community, with decades of experience. Located over at 4001 West 95th Street in Suite 200. Give him a call for any of your legal needs. 708-499-6300. The law offices of Lawrence G. Liebforth, here to help you.
A pitcher of beer, a pitcher of beer. Let's order another pitcher of beer. That pitcher of beer should come over here. I love that pitcher of beer.
Sitting down here at the 9-foot homemade oak bar, and it's always fun when the guy who shows up brings beer, especially when he has a brewery as good as Open Outcry. John Brand down here, he's got Open Outcry Brewing over at 109th and Western, but they've really become the adopted brewery of Evergreen Park. They do all kinds of deliveries in here in the EP as well, and he's beaming because he brought me something new.
What do you think?
It's good. I mean, it really is. I mean, like, I took a taste of this before we sat down, and as soon as I tasted it, I was like, well, you've got a summer hit. You've got something right now that, like not only would I drink this beer on a really hot day because it's refreshing, but you've got something the ladies are going to love.
We're excited about this beer. This is the Speculator, which is, as you know, our number one selling beer, our beer that we sell the most of by volume as well. This is the Speculator with lemon and lime zest. We released this a couple weeks ago on a trial basis to see what the feedback was or that was going to receive, and it's been overwhelming. And I enjoy drinking it. We're drinking a lot in my house, and it's selling very, very well. So I think you're going to see this on draft most, if not all, of the summer, upcoming spring and summer.
Well, I've always been one of these guys that like, you see the gimmicks, like Budweiser tries it and Miller Lite tried it, I think, for a little while. And everybody tries like these things, like we'll put a lime in it, put a lemon in it. And they don't always come out very good. Like there's been a few of them I've been like, okay, well, after a long day of like mowing the lawn and I'm really hot, those things are pretty refreshing.
A lot of those are artificial flavoring and artificial sweeteners.
Right. This is different. I can tell that's what I was getting to. This is different. There's something different about
What's
this.
cool about this beer is that we are literally sitting in the brewery every week, hand zesting limes and hand zesting lemons.
And zesting's when it's the outside, right?
Yeah, you shave the outside with the nail file tool, and it gives it just a very authentic lemon lime taste. But it's still subtle, right? Like most of the things we try to do, we do not try to overwhelm the palate with these adjuncts or different fruits. We want it to be subtle, just a hint of it. And what's cool about this is not only you get it in the flavor, but you get it in the nose as well. So when you bring the glass to your nose, you're getting those lemon and lime notes in it before you even take a sip.
So where does an idea like this come from? Was it like one of these things where he's like, I've never tried it, I want to do it? Was it something that was like specific for summertime or spring?
The cool thing about running a brew pub is you get to sit around and drink beer and talk beer all day with people, right? And last year we were doing a lot of Speculator with lemons, and that was based off the request of our customers. So you get instant feedback from people in the tap room, and people were asking for different fruited speculators. As you know, since we've been open, we regularly rotate fruited speculators. We did lemon last year, and the feedback was exceptional. So we did it a number of times in the summer going into the fall. And then we were sitting around talking about it a couple of weeks ago, and one of the staff said, hey, let's do lemon and lime, and maybe it'll bring sort of a Corona-type experience to Speculator.
Right.
To use as a point of reference. And we tried it, and we put it on draft, and didn't promote it initially like we do with all our newer beers, and started handing it out to our regular customers and getting feedback, and they loved it. So we've been doing this now every week for the last, I'd say, 4 or 5 weeks.
Awesome. And it's just in time, I would imagine. You've got to be close to opening up the roof, right? I mean, you've got to be close to, like, bring out your people, put them up on the top of the roof, and enjoy the sunshine weather, right?
We've been up there every day, prepping, bringing the furniture up, cleaning, and that'll probably go on for the next 2 or 3 weeks. We're targeting a May 1st, early May open on the rooftop.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Any changes to it this year for people that have been there before? Like, if people have never been there before, and correct me if I'm wrong as I describe it, generally what you guys have up there is, first of all, like looking out over Western Avenue. It's not really a wall, it's glass, but it's really neat because you kind of can walk up to it and kind of look out, and it's nice and secure, but you're up on the roof. And then you'll have like almost like lawn furniture, like really fancy, like, cushioned, like laid back, relaxing type furniture up in that area. But then you also have tables like all throughout the rest of it. There's certain sections that have umbrellas over it. Has anything changed? Is it going to be basically the same layout?
This is going to be our 3rd summer on the roof, and every year we try to make incremental improvements to the aesthetics, to the service, to everything. And the biggest priorities this year is, 1, more sun covering. So every table will end up having sun covering this year.
Okay.
Whereas I think last year about half the tables had sun covering, which in times of midday made it a little uncomfortable.
But it can get a little bright. I mean, when I would go, I wasn't sure if I was getting sun covering, so I'd wear a ball cap. But now you're telling me there's sun covering everywhere.
Every table. So we're gonna we have these beautiful cantilever umbrellas sitting over half the tables last year. They will be over every table this year. And then the other thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start piping in sound music. So we're having real nice speakers installed next week, which will give a nice ambient background music to the deck, where in the past we were doing live music maybe twice a week, but we're gonna have piped in music, and then you're gonna see some TVs up there, and we're gonna be doing additional things to always trying to improve, make incremental improvements to our service, and you're gonna see changes to the service, the way we provides service up there as well.
When you bring up the music, it hits me, and I got to bring it up. I brought the kids in there last weekend, and I had the whole family sitting there. You came in from your office, and you look around, and you went into the back. And my son goes, where's what's back there? I said, he's checking on the music. And they go, what? I'm like, John wants to make sure the music's perfect inside of his place. Like, that's a true thing, right? Like you're like, when you walk in, you're like, it's got to be at the right level. I want people to enjoy themselves. I want them to have fun. Music makes a difference inside of a place like yours.
There's a million things that go into providing an excellent experience to guests when they come into your restaurant, to your bar, to your tavern, to amusement parks, and anywhere where people are coming to spend leisure time and leisure dollars. There's a million things that go into making those exceptional experiences. 3 of the biggest are sound, temperature, and lighting. We try to be very conscious of that. So we design the lighting system to provide a real nice glow over the tap room at different hours during the day based on the light, the light from outside. That's right. We spend a lot. We're always checking in with guests to make sure the temperature is appropriate in the tap room. But sound is key, and we worked really hard to put together a playlist that appeals to everybody, but is still fun and high energy. And then that sound adjustment's constantly changing, depending on who's in the tap room. So when you measure and read the room, and perhaps the demographic's a little bit older, we know from experience they want that decibel level a little lower, so we'll adjust it. So we're constantly, and then if it's later in the evening and the age demographic probably decreases a little bit, we'll start turning the music up a little bit.
The young folks come out.
Right, and massaging that playlist a little bit. So that is an ongoing effort.
You're like a mad scientist. You're like a mad scientist.
I'm crazy about it.
You're figuring out the lighting. You're figuring out the sound. You're figuring out the comfort level. You're figuring out your upstairs. You're constantly making improvements. And then you sit there and you have a couple beers and you go, you know, it'd be good? Lemon and lime inside of this speculator.
I think that's exactly what's happened. We might have had a couple beers before that happened too. I'm crazy about temperature, lighting, in sound, and I think I drive the rest of the staff crazy with that because I'm constantly asking, is it too loud? Is it not loud enough? Is it too loud? And they're like, yeah, the sound is fine. Leave it alone. I'm like, no, I think it's just a hair too loud. I'm going to turn it down.
John Brand's over at 109th and Western at Open Outcry. You can check them out, openoutcrybrewing.com. I love it when you come by here. You always have something really cool for us to try. You know, the big thing about having a podcast and a podcast network from your 9-foot homemade oak bar is the idea that I would get to sit down here and drink beer. And so you're a godsend to me because you come and hang out on the show and tell me all this really interesting stuff, and you bring me beer.
Well, you're such a handsome fellow. I like being down here.
Does your financial advisor actually take time to listen to you? Is your financial strategy personalized for you and your family? Will your financial advisor be there as your life and financial situation changes? Why worry about those things when Tom Walsh is nearby? He's your local Edward Jones financial advisor. He works with you, focusing on what's important to you. He uses an established process to create personalized financial strategy, and he partners with you to help your strategy stay on track. Listen, families in South Chicagoland have been benefiting from Tom's get-to-know-you approach and do the right thing values for over 18 years. Contact my close personal friend and also a fellow Brother Rice alumni, Tom Walsh. He's your local Edward Jones advisor, located in Mount Greenwood, right outside of the EP at 111th and Kedzie. Member SIPC. We are joined by somebody that's been on the show before, but I always go visit her, and she tries to, fix everything that's wrong with me. How I stand, how I walk, the aches, the pains. You've heard me talk about them before, Core Fitness and Physical Therapy. They're located right next to Little Company and Mary Hospital on 95th Street. And Diane Fidler is the owner, and it is a big deal for you this year, Diane, because you guys are turning 16 years old. Is that right?
16 years old. Yep. Sweet 16.
Wow. Like, I never get to talk to a business that has been around for a long time in Evergreen. Like, every once in a while I get to do it, but I mean, like, have you been in the same spot for all 16 years?
I have. I've been in the same spot 16 years, just kind of took one room over, then the other room over, and then the building.
And then the building. Just like it just took over everything when you were in there.
I just kept on steamrolling. Yes. Yes.
So, first of all, when you started, were you doing the Pilates, or were you doing the physical therapy? Like, what was the first thing that you started doing when you started the company?
Well, actually, I've just had this discussion with a patient today. It really all comes down to one patient who has, she's since passed away, but she's, I moved to Beverly 20 years ago, and I wasn't working. I was pregnant with my second child, and someone said they needed a personal trainer to fill in. And the two women, I went and did one session for them, and then it turns out their personal trainer left. So this particular woman said, could you come take a look at my husband's shoulder? I think he hurt it in Mexico. Well, I took a look at his shoulder, and I just did a few things, but he swears I fixed him and I healed him, and he's telling everybody, and he happens to be a great guy, and she was a great woman, and they started telling their friends. So then I started seeing people in my basement, kind of a hybrid of physical.
Oh, like me. I started my business in my basement. See that? We're exactly the same. Although, mine, there's a lot more drinking. But yeah.
Well, so I had a piece of Pilates equipment. I had a reformer and a table in my basement, and I would just see people early morning, just kind of one at a time, cash patients. And I was teaching a Pilates class, one class with Beverly Rydon, who now is still with us. So little by little, I thought I got to get out of my basement, basically. And I rented, this is the funny part of the story, is I wanted to rent month to month because I was not sure I was going to make it a year.
You're starting a business.
You're trying
to figure out what you're going to do,
exactly.
And you're just starting out. That makes sense.
Right. So borrowed a little bit of money from my mom and, negotiated the month-to-month deal. And I think it was about 5 years into it when I said, okay, I'll sign a year.
Wow.
And the landlords were great. They're the attorneys that were next door. And I was a little bit superstitious about doing a grand opening. I felt like, what if I opened and it didn't work out? Then I'd feel like an idiot. So we did our grand opening at 10 years.
You waited 10 years.
We waited 10 years.
You waited 10 years to have a grand opening.
It was like a grand opening.
See, this is why I'm thrown off by the fact that already Core Fitness and Physical Therapy's at 16 years, because I think some people think that you're relatively new, but you've been doing this now for a long time.
Yeah, I do think that. And I think in the beginning, and still now, a lot of people think that we're just Pilates or just fitness. And it's Pilates-based physical therapy, and it's Core Fitness. And Core is an acronym for Create Overall Renewed Energy.
Well, first off, there's two things there that I want to jump into with you. First off, I understand the whole physical therapy aspect mixed with the Pilates because now I've been going there. And I get the whole idea of what you've been talking about because I go in and I talk about like, oh, my back's bothering me, or this is happening, or I'm getting like this hip problem. Like when I first started going there, I wanted to get into better shape, but I wanted to injure myself less because as I get older, I injure myself all the time. But one of the things that was discovered right away is that one of my hips was opening up like way too much, or like I had this like horrible strain on it, and just from doing the exercises and going in there, it doesn't happen anymore. And it's crazy to me because I'm thinking, well, I'm doing exercises. I'm walking out, I'm feeling taller, I'm doing this. My gait is different. The way I walk is a little bit different, everything like that. But also like the little nagging injuries that I've had forever are like disappearing.
Right. And that's really why it's such a perfect blend, honestly, is I was trained as a physical therapist. My licensure in physical therapy, but I've been a fitness professional my whole life. And once I studied and learned Pilates, I thought these are the exact same thing mixed together. So Pilates is perfect for what you just said because it strengthens everything front to back, side to side, and symmetry. So theoretically, I think if you did Pilates every day and were really consistent with it, you might not need physical therapy. So it's a great marketing both ways, I guess.
Are there a lot of places that do this, that put Pilates with physical therapy, or have you kind of done something revolutionary?
I don't know that I would say revolutionary. I definitely got the idea when I was living here in Beverly, but I first learned Pilates when I was up north in Lincoln Park, and I did know of a studio up there, actually further than north. Further than Lincoln Park, north suburbs. And there was one studio doing it. So I went down and did some informational interviewing and just kind of sat in with the studio. And it was a similar approach. But at the time, back then, there was definitely not any other studios doing it. And I think it's pretty few and far between, at least in this area.
Imagine one day, out of nowhere, you need your car towed. Who are you going to call? You have no idea. Right, because none of us think about that until it actually happens. So I'm going to give you a name, Dreamers Towing and Recovery. Located in Evergreen Park, Illinois, they will tow your vehicle locally or at a long distance at a very affordable price. What happens when your car needs a jump start? Dreamers Towing and Recovery. What happens when you're locked out of your car? Dreamers Towing and Recovery. You got a junk car, you don't know how to get rid of it, and you just want to move along and get some cash? They buy your junk cars. Covering the EP and the surrounding south side of Chicago, Dreamers is there when you need them with 24-hour service. Call them 773-410-4549. 773-410-4549. Turn a sudden nightmare into a dream with Dreamers Towing and Recovery. You know, you mentioned Beverly, that's where you live right now, but you have your studio in Evergreen Park. And it's been interesting over the last year watching businesses in Evergreen Park compared to maybe in Chicago or in another suburb. It's been a little different for some other people. And meanwhile, Evergreen Park is getting new businesses that are opening in the middle of a pandemic. What is it like owning a business in this village? I mean, do you feel like they're more invested in you succeeding?
100%. That was the best decision I made on accident, honestly. When I was first looking for space, I lived in Chicago, I lived in Beverly, and I was just sort of looking throughout the neighborhood in Mount Greenwood, Chicago, Evergreen Park, and this building opportunity just came up, and I didn't really know what I was buying into necessarily. And I am so happy with everything through Evergreen. Definitely. They want you to succeed, and it's been like a family, and it's been really great. I did try to open up another. Well, I didn't try to. I opened up another location in Countryside for a brief stint of about 2 years, and it's like going away to college. You really appreciate what you have at home.
It was different.
It was way different. Everything start to finish.
That's amazing. That's interesting to hear. So I walk in there, and you have pictures of so many people that work for you up on the wall. And what's funny is, like, I keep trying to see, like, how many of them I've actually seen when I walk in there, and it's difficult because everybody's wearing a mask. But, like, I'm convinced that I've really only scratched the surface with the amount of people that actually work at Core. How many people do you have, just ballpark, if you don't have the exact number? And how important has it been that they've all been kind of on board while you've been doing things so differently now? I mean, you're doing things online because of the pandemic. Then you had to get used to the idea of people coming back in and doing things. Like, what was that like? And I've heard a lot of other businesses that had huge turnover, but I can't imagine you do. Based upon those pictures up there, you don't put pictures up of new employees. Those must be people who have been around for a while.
That is very true. And I think the beauty of Core Fitness and Physical Therapy by far is the people in it. The people that come there, but first and foremost, the people that work there. And most, if not all of the girls that are there, women that are there, were referred from someone else or were clients or patients first. You know, my original team, most of them are all still there. And that's what really made it is the consistency and the loyalty and the branding with the people. And through the pandemic, I just kind of want to give a little shout out to my sort of newly developed dream team. And that's in large part how we got through all the changes. I've got Courtney Broderick, who's the PT manager, Terry McCabe, who's Pilates manager, amongst lots of other things, and Katie Nolan, who's the office and billing manager. So we kind of dubbed it the dream team during the pandemic.
16 years at Core Fitness and Physical Therapy. Diane Fidler, are there big plans ahead?
Well, we're really rolling on some momentum, working real hard on our women's health program. And we're just starting with an air affiliate. So we're doing aerial yoga and aerial fitness. And
that's the thing where you hang from the sheets, like a Pink concert? Is
yes,
that what you're telling me?
Like a Pink concert, yeah. Yes. Very, very good. Similar. And we're going to segue into men's health and golf rehab and performance.
Golf rehab?
Yep. So we're heading that way and looking to do a little bit more of sports performance and rehab as well for the kids.
If you want to check out Core Fitness and Physical Therapy, 2940 95th Street in Evergreen Park. Want to give you a plug because you came over here and hang out. But in reality, I want to let you know your dream team, especially one of your members, Terry McCabe, was the one that reached out to me and was like, did you know that they've been around for 16 years? And I was like, no. And she's like, you have to go ask Diane about how all this went down and how she started her business. And I found it to be really interesting to go from your basement to month and now be like really what I think has become an institution in Evergreen Park. I think a lot of people know about core fitness and physical therapy, and those that don't should be heading over there and checking it out and seeing what's going on. And especially if you ever, look, I've injured myself multiple times, and I would expect, turning 44 in May, it's coming again. So if I get hurt and I need to go to a physical therapist, you're there. If I want to work on Pilates and strengthening my core, you're there. There's a lot of really interesting things for men and for women that are over there, and it's something to check out.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'd love to see you.
Another show is wrapped up. Another show's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. And then by the looks, it's going to be a good one. And we'll see you next week. And the nude is basement. And the nude is basement. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And it's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. Nudie's Basement. Broadcast Basement. The Nudie's Basement. The Broad Basement. Slancha.
The EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at the eppodcast.com.